1+1 Forward, the podcast powered by the apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC, Rich, and I'm joined by my guest, James Iles of UFO Press. Hey James, welcome to the show.
Hey Rich, it's great to be here.
Oh, good, excited to have you on here in the second season. This is another one of our game-focused episodes, and we're going to be talking with James about one of his games, Legacy Life Among the Ruins 2nd Edition. But let's kick it off with a traditional question. James, how long have you been playing PbtA games, and what was your gateway?
I was actually following Vincent's designs back in the Dogs in the Vineyard days, so I actually have a copy of his pre-order documents for Apocalypse World sitting on my hard drive. Never really got that to the table very well, because players, I think, weren't used to the playbook concept back then, and they're these very specific concepts that people weren't really sort of able to sort of process, I think, at the time. But so I'd say my real actual big introduction to PbtA as a whole was Dungeon World, because I was put in a position of running tabletop games for my university role-playing society, and I thought I want a good introduction that's nice and light and gets people off the D&D path as quickly as possible. So Dungeon World, which I ended up running about once a week for a year for the university.
Nice. I'm curious, so you started off in Dungeon World. Did you use a traditional setting, or did you guys create your own world for that?
I wanted to make a setting that could change over time, but also be fine for people to drop in and out. So what I ended up doing was a sort of nautical setting. So the players were on Port Salt, which was a settlement built on the back of a giant dead crab in the middle of the ocean.
Ooh, cool. So, that's cool. That's really cool.
So there was industry mining the crab for flesh, salt flesh to feed the people, and, it's this port that everyone could come to. And then obviously as the game goes on, it turns out the crab isn't as dead as people thought, and people from the other side of the ocean start coming and invading, and all this jazz,
Oh man, that is good. I love it. Awesome. Well, let's kick on over here and read a Sitch, okay?
Read a Sitch.
All right, James, I wanted to talk with you about what's going on at your table, and you mentioned the possibility of talking about splitting the party. Well, now that's old school. You're not supposed to do that because it causes a lot of work for the DM, who will kill your characters. So what is it you have to say about this splitting the party business here?
Well, so this was close to my mind recently, because one of the problems that the Gauntlet ran into when they were running Legacy back in the day was it leads to lots of individual players having scenes on their own, which, wasn't fun. So I started thinking that, well, with games that are so highly focused on the conversation between people, it sucks to be left out of that, doesn't it?
Right.
But with a PbtA game, you've got these very independent characters who are sort of pursuing their own character arcs and doing their own things. Often a playbook will have its own particular part of the setting that it's responsible for. So you've got to reconcile those two things. Everyone wanting to have a voice, and also everyone wanting to do things that maybe not everyone else will be able to participate in.
Right. So what are some things that you've thought about to try to solve for that?
There's a few things that I've been trying out recently. The first is just sort of guest stars. So if a scene is happening that not everyone is going to be participating in, give some of the players a character there to play. And so that actually grew into a whole mechanic that I've been designing, where there are these sort of mini playbooks that people can grab, build a character in a few minutes or so, and jump into the action. And they've got sort of punchy abilities that make them make a difference, and they can play that out. But there's, plenty of other ways of doing it. It's a problem that games throughout the ages have struggled with. For example, the Ars Magica system of troop play, which is pretty fun.
Old Ars Magica, man. That is really cool. Which is funny because Ars Magica, of course, was one of the influences for Vincent and McGay Baker from way back in the day, because they played that game forever. Yeah, that is really cool. So for those who don't know, what is troop play?
Basically, in Ars Magica, every player has a powerful wizard that they're controlling, but wizards don't like to go on adventures. They like to stay in their towers and do research. So everyone also has a companion who is a sort of wizard helper who's got all sorts of special abilities, And there's also a communal pool of servants of the Wizard Covenant. So the way the game works is you take it in turns to play your wizard, and then everyone else is playing either their companion or one of these servants out on an adventure. So that means that you've always got someone you can play.
Now, weren't those guys called Grogs?
Yes,
Is that right?
I was sort of shying away from specific technology. I'm actually in a...
sorry, I just love that name.
It's great. I like that their default equipment is a sack and a stick.
Yes, sacks and sticks in Apocalypse World all around. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So the idea of everybody being that kind of, this is the highlight character, but they have a troop of characters. So similar almost in a way to like Green Arrow or the Flash, like they all have their support team. I like that. Really. I could totally see that in Legacy too, because of the faction. It makes a lot of sense. That's really neat. Any other ways that you try to solve for those split party type of games?
Well, the other thing is to just have a real editor's eye, a producer's eye. Because it happens in TV shows all the time. We'll have paired scenes between two characters. But the key is to edit well. Whether that's because, you stop a scene once it's resolved its stakes and stop it from meandering, or you actually set up two scenes in parallel is something I do occasionally.
Exciting.
So you say, you guys are doing this, you guys are doing this, and maybe they're related or maybe they're not. And you just sort of cross-cut between them to keep the sort of tension building.
Nice. Do you imagine in your own head, are you keeping them along the same timeline so that one event, like say somebody fires up a flare, they might see it in the other scene and that's how you cross-cut back and forth?
Yeah, that's generally pretty fun. I mean, you can do it sort of non-linearly, where you're cutting between a fight that someone's having and the other group, I don't know, investigating the results of the fight later, but that takes a bit more effort to
I like that too.
put together.
I like that. That is really cool. So cross-cutting back and forth, harsh editing, those kind of two work together.
Yeah.
Guest stars, which is where people have quickly created effectively NPCs that they step into and embody so that they don't sit idle. And then troop play. Those are also really interesting ways to try to keep folks from having to feel like they're sitting out and keeping them engaged and involved. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. You've mentioned this in Legacy Life Among the Ruins. I would like if we could open our brains up and talk a little bit about this second edition that's coming, okay?
Sure.
Open your brain.
All right, James, when this episode comes out, your Kickstarter will have been live for one whole day.
A whole day.
Here's crossing fingers that you've already funded, but just in case people are curious about that, or maybe they haven't heard about it and they're just listening to this feed, tell me about Legacy Life Among the Ruins. What's the setting and what's it about?
The key idea for Legacy is there's been a huge apocalypse and the world is never going to be the same again. Sounds very unique, I know. The big deal is everyone controls, as well as a character, a faction of survivors that have been changed by the apocalypse in some strange way, whether that's, they have a strange new religion that gives them mystical powers, or they've held on to some technology from the old world that isn't working quite the same, or a whole range of different things. And you're telling the story as a group of how these people rebuild the world, how they discover how new it is, and how they adapt to it. It's essentially a apocalypse, but with extra scale, both looking at the faction scale. So, you're controlling a group, moving armies around and sending spies and all that sort of thing. And the time scale, because as you play, you'll go through generations. You'll go through these huge time skips where you see what the world is like now.
Interesting. So this time skip that you're talking about, is that something codified in the rules, or is that just something you handle narratively as a conversation with the playgroup?
Yeah, definitely. It's a big deal. So every age, which is the game's term for these sort of narrative chunks, these points in history, there's a procedure you work through to say, what's the interesting things in the wasteland, what's changed since the last time we were here, and how all the different families have adjusted. And sort of that evolution over time that does is a key theme of Legacy, where something like Apocalypse World is very much about sort of dealing with scarcity and overcoming the petty rivalries between people and the fate of this one particular hardhold. Legacy is more about evolution and adaptation. It's about working out the ways in which the world has changed and changing yourself to fit them. And a lot of that is how factions change over time and also how characters change over time.
Now, are there points of the game where you would be playing a faction and not your character? Or is the faction just kind of a backdrop that you make meta decisions without actually talking in character?
Every family move is phrased along the way of when you send your family's agents to do things. So when your character gets your family to do this. But it's certainly possible that, for example, if your character has died, you can still direct the family. And in that case, I'd probably have one of the players build one of these extra characters just to sort of take the reins for the time being.
Uh-huh.
But part of what Legacy does, especially the second edition, is give each character a role within their family. So you know for sure what sort of influence you have over the rest of the family, whether you're a leader or an agent or a rebel or an outsider. And each of these gives you specific ways of interacting with the rest of the family and getting them to do things.
Now, if you own the faction and you own your character, what are some of the ways that, let's say I'm playing with Lowell and Jason, and we're all sitting at the table. Are there ways within the game to make sure that Jason's PC is involved with either my faction or my family? Are we expected to be within a large city, and that is the housing and kind of the staging point where we're going to cross over? Or are they playing as part of my family? When I say family, faction, family.
Yeah.
Are they part of my family? Like, how does that cross? Like, how do we keep from having like a game of Dominion, right? Where everybody's very quietly playing their Dominion thing, and then all of a sudden someone raises their hand, I'm done.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
So part of that is that every family needs things. Every family starts the game in a state of, in a negative state. They need more things than they've got. And the other players might have those things. So as part of game setup, you build up the backstory between your factions and the backstory between your characters. So you know what debts and obligations the other families have. So there's a system somewhat like strings in Monster Hearts between factions.
Uh-huh.
So every faction playbook has a way of getting more treaties on the other ones. Like, for example, the Enclave, who are all about advanced technology, can show another faction how to better use their own gear and tech and get an obligation over them. And you can cash this in to get that other family to do something for you or take one of their resources for your own. So it's all set up so that everyone needs things that they can't have, but the other players can be their route to that.
Okay, cool. So you've got this post-apocalyptic setting, but there's a lot of politics, which makes sense for a faction level gamer, where you have that structure on top of the layer of the actual individual player character. I like that. Though another question I have about you talked about ages. Is there a countdown clock from, okay, we're coming to the end of this age and now we're going to do that times passing section?
It's generally left to taste to the playgroup. At the start At the start of each age, you'll have defined a few threats that are out there in the world and a few plot arcs that seem obvious. But the idea is that for this age, you're focusing on a pretty short span of time that's pivotal to history. And so once the group feels like they've exhausted that, then you move forward. If everyone's okay with, playing in this time a bit more, if they think there's more interesting things to happen, then that's fine. You can stay there.
Cool. And when you skip the time, you stay with your faction and everybody generates new characters and we pick back up with some new treaties between those new characters?
Well, exactly.
Cool.
Although the things that can happen between ages can change that up quite a bit. So, for example, your factions could intermarry so that your new character is actually more descended from someone else's family than from your own.
Oh, neat. That is really cool. You could just swap it up. Okay, now you be the lawgiver.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. So I know we've already touched on some of it, but for people who are maybe familiar with Legacy Life Among the Ruins First Edition, what's changing from Second Edition? Or what is it about Second Edition that makes it people should totally jump in? What are the parts of this game that you're most excited about, really?
Yeah, definitely I'd say my most excited thing is character roles. These are that leader and rebel and agent thing. And that's completely new for this edition. And the nice thing I love about those is they're not just saying this is how I relate to this family. They each have a that's playbook specific. So, for example, the Seeker, who is all about uncovering old technology, they become the leader when they're put in a position to do some sort of great work with their family. At which point they say what they want it to do, and the GM says one resource they need to claim to do it. Or, for example, the Sentinel becomes a rebel when they protect an enemy of the family. And, they say why they did that, and the GM says who's out to get them now, and that sort of thing. So they're all just huge plot chunks that dump straight into your game. And the nice thing is that the way you advance as a character is by changing your role.
Oh, wow. I really dig that. Now, is it the same series of roles regardless of faction?
The roles are character playbook specific, not family playbook specific.
Oh, cool. Awesome. That's really neat. So advancement is through the roles, so you have this progression of story there. I like that a lot. That's neat. And it plays to the faction level because it's almost like a family relationship.
Yeah. And every time that you hit a new role, well, that changes how your character reacts to the family, and it'll tend to change what's happening to the family in the sort of broader strategic sense.
That is really neat. I'm digging that. Cool. What else has changed for second edition?
I've incorporated the map a lot more into the game. One of the things that happened between me releasing first edition and making second edition is I played The Quiet Year, which is an amazing, amazing game, and thought, well, we can definitely bring this more into it. So a crucial part of game setup is drawing the map of the homeland. Each family playbook has choices for their stats, 3 stat choices, and each choice says something about the world. For the Enclave, for example, who are all about holding on to old technology, if they have a stat array that's very good at conducting diplomacy with people, that implies that technology was widespread and everyone had it. Whereas if they have a stat array that is very good at holding on to resources and claiming them for their own, that then means that the technology was very much held in particular bunkers and research institutions. And the same goes for all the playbooks. So, the cultivators of new flesh get to say what the ecosystem was like. The lawgivers of the wasteland get to say what law and order, what happened to law and order at the end of all things, all that sort of thing. And as you play through the game, you also get to add things to the map. There's this currency called data, which you get by learning stuff about the world as a character. And your family can then spend that to add, places of security to the map, or incoming dangers, or all that sort of thing.
That sounds really interesting. I know a lot of the games that I've played at PbtA, people really get into the world building and mechanizing that and then putting in a physical representation. That's pretty sharp. I dig that. Anything else that you wanted to highlight that's changing over for second edition?
The quick character thing that we talked about, the troop play where you can just jump in as a member of another player's family, that's very robustly supported now. Each family will have particular ways that quick characters from that family are different from everyone else's, and make it very easy to join the story. Say, I'm this guy now, and he is cool in this particular way, and now he is making a final last stand, and now he's dead, and because he's dead, the family has changed in this particular way.
Oh, that's cool. That is awesome. We'll kind of roll back here and talk about just legacy life among the ruins. What mechanics about legacy life among the ruins, first or second edition, are primarily different in this game versus Apocalypse World?
Well, obviously the family is a big part of that.
Right.
But in some ways that's a lot like giving everyone a hard hold in some ways.
Yeah.
You've got surpluses and want, you've got something to keep them in line. But this second layer of actions that you can take, so there are moves to zoom out and zoom in, to move from a very close-up character level where things are happening in hours or minutes to the family level where things are happening in days and months. And that's actually reflected in the system of the pace of action changing. There's also the fact that, unlike Apocalypse World, where characters are meant to, they're the stars of the show, and they're meant to last through a whole sort of HBO miniseries of 10 episodes or whatever.
Right.
Characters in Legacy are meant to burn bright. They're meant to leave their mark on the world, but meant to fit as, a whole character arc in a few sessions. So that's where the changing roles to advance comes in. It's also where harm comes in. When you suffer harm as a character, you can mark particular boxes, and each character playbook has 5, but they're all different between playbooks. So when you mark a box, you can say, this means that I am hurt or frightened or my leg's broken, and that has a particular effect.
Right.
But there's also the dead box that all characters share.
The dead box? Okay.
Yes. When you tick the dead box, you activate your death move, which was a concept I took from Grimworld, which was a Dungeon World hack way back when. But basically, you get to make this final big gesture that has a permanent effect. And the nice thing about that is you can choose which boxes to tick whenever you take harm. So you can easily say, right, I think it's my time to die now. It's time for this character to end.
Oh.
Whenever you take damage. And a lot of these death moves are big things, like the survivor can pick another member of their party, and that person is going to get home safely no matter what. Or the Seeker, when they die, all their technology goes haywire, and they leave this permanent sort of maelstrom in the world from then on.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that's quite cool is, so a big deal about Legacy is that you can change the world, that you can improve the world. It's a story of how you rebuild over generations. And part of that is wanders.
Okay.
Which, a bit like in Civilization or what have you, these are these particular things that your family can build up to over time. And they take a lot of investment to do. They take a long, gradual process. But when they happen, that same procedure that you would use to change between ages happens, but in a particular directed way, to emphasize how that you've built this thing and that everything is changed.
Nice. So the person whose faction creates a wonder will help to shape the next age.
Yeah, in huge ways. So there's, for example, you can build a giant communications network that means that, there's this new golden age of scientific discovery. Or you can build a city, which means that for the next age, it's all happening in this giant metropolis that you've made. Or you can go to war, or you can create a revolution that sweeps the homeland, or you can find a new place to live. And these are all sort of big projects that you can embark on.
Man, you got me pretty excited, but I have one last question before I beg you to act under fire with me. What is your favorite move and why?
So, one thing I really like, one that is a great tone setter for me, is the move Find Common Ground. And that's a basic move that all characters get a hold of. And it's
Wait, what? I see moves here called Defuse and Find Common Ground. We're supposed to shoot everything? Oh, man. Okay, tell me about this Find Common Ground. This is crazy.
So the whole root of Legacy, the reason why I wrote it in the way, is that I was just so tired of traditional post-apocalyptic narratives like The Road and The Walking Dead, where it's all just about who can debase themselves and become most inhuman to survive, etc.
Yeah.
So I wanted a game where peaceful options were possible, even if, they weren't always very likely. So Find Common Ground is a nice, simple social move where you ask someone to work with you and you roll Sway, which is a social stat. And depending on how you roll, they get to pick a few criteria that it will take for you to work with them.
Nice.
So it's not like Dungeon World's Parley or what have you, where if you hit it, then they will work with you, but they might need some assurance. It's more about you reaching out and them saying, all right, I will work with you, but under these very specific circumstances. And obviously their player can pick ones that are completely impossible. But on the other hand, they can say, all right, I'll do it if you get someone else to vouch for you and you do this for me. Or I'll do it if you reduce the threat you pose to me and you owe me. Or that sort of thing. And I like it a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. That there are times when people will like, oh, well, I'm going to manipulate. And you hit it. And as the MC, you're like, oh, man, maybe I should have let this roll happen. Now how do I bend this? But having sway and that negotiation.
The conversation between players and the GM I don't want that to ever be something that just stops because someone made a roll and so they have to agree now. You know?
Right.
I like to put conditions on that. I like to put restrictions on that, saying, okay, you need to hit this or whatever, but you've established these parameters. You've established the boundaries of what you'll accept. So we can sort of guide conversation towards those.
Right. But there's still a move in there, still mechanics there to say, okay, but it was worth a roll, right? It was worth a roll to me.
Yeah.
I like that. You got me pretty excited. I want to give this thing a shot. Can we go over here and act under fire and play a little bit of Legacy Life Among the Ruins 2nd edition?
Let's go for it.
It is time to act under fire.
I am part of the Final Legion, who are the descendants of veterans that survived the fall together, acting with well-drilled precision and governed by a visionary conqueror, worried about the autonomous killbots. Though my family is established, they remain ever vigilant. Guard patrols will tell me if anything hostile crosses the border. I have the engines of war. If I have both surplus, weaponry, and leadership, I gain +1 reach. Military might reinforces my diplomacy and influence. And the moves are always outnumbered, never outgunned. That is really cool. Starting with 3 arsenal. And then the unit is +1 F. A newly altruistic bot with a hulking body, a decorated metal faceplate, heavy-duty casing, and a soft voice. The moves are synthetic being, and that means that I can shrug off damage that would maim organics, and interface, which allows me to interface my mind directly with technology. And I have a gear of Legion soldiers, integrated auto shotgun, mobility exoskeleton, and a dune buggy. That is awesome. I also have the move of conscription, with access to a large group of people and financial, emotional, or brutal leverage over them. My family can gain surplus recruits, but I have to choose one when I make that choice, and that will change how the conscripts work or interact. Awesome.
Right. So, shall we get started?
Let us get started.
Alright. Unit +1F. You've been sent out from the Final Legion to scavenge for supplies out here in the fire-blasted wasteland that used to be some sort of great sprawling city. You're in the... you guess they're the suburbs. There's buildings scattered around. Your dune buggy is a bit behind you with your friends and soldiers on it. And you're currently just picking through rubble. What are you looking for?
What I am looking for is more microwave technology. We have come to this suburb because all of the houses are built the same, and it is easy to find where among the ruins of the outlines of what were once houses, the technology that I need to rebuild and to enhance our microwave frame dish.
Sounds good. Alright, so you know that, well, a lot of the stuff that was outside, a lot of the stuff that was on the exterior of houses didn't survive the fires. But you're at a particular house where you can tell that there's metal framework keeping it secure, keeping it stable. Well, not all the house, most of it burned up, but it looks like it was the entrance to a basement that's been solidified into some sort of panic room.
Ah, yes.
It's just standing there amid the rubble.
Good. I give a wave to my fellows at the dune buggy, and then I will proceed inside. But I do want to take a moment to observe it carefully, see if I can make sure that this isn't a place that's already inhabited.
So you do notice that there's a blinking light above what looks like a keypad, because there's a sort of rolling shutter keeping this thing closed.
Ah, well, I can interface with technology.
Yeah.
So I would like to interface with that keypad.
Alright, do you want to roll me plus law as you send a cable into there and make contact with its mind?
Alright, rolling 2d6 plus my stat.
Yes.
I got a 10, a 6, and a 3.
Nice.
So there we go.
Alright. You make contact with the small AI that maintains this bunker security system, and it sort of perks up a little, and it's like, contact. Contact. What can I do for you, sir?
Contact? How long has it been since you had contact? Do you have a concept of time?
It has been 300 days.
I need to enter.
You are not on the list of authorized entrants, but it is an emergency.
It is an emergency.
You may enter, because my people may... They have been still for so long. Please can you show me if they are well?
Yes, I will.
And the roller lifts up. Below you can see steps going down into the darkness.
Good. I would imagine I have a torch of some kind, or...
Yeah, just sort of lights on the front of your faceplate.
Lights on my faceplate is the best thing ever, so I will do that.
All right.
Clicks on, and I'll start heading down the stairs.
You stomp downwards, and yeah, it looks like this was some sort of bunker, some sort of shelter. There's some old decayed sofas, there's a shelf with lots of cans on it, most of them empty. There's a microwave next to it.
I'll come back for it, but I want to see more.
Yes. Sweeping your light around, it illuminates the bright white of bone on the floor.
Are there any other doors, any other rooms here in this shelter?
Yes, there is one door facing away from you, just sort of round the back of the stairs down here.
I'll walk around behind the stairs and take a look at that door. Is it ajar? Is it closed firmly?
It is barred. There is a plank, which seems to have been taken from the sofa, actually, now you look at it, nailed shut across it.
Are there any tools here? Do I happen to have any tools that I could use to pry those nails?
You can try and push through it with your strength. You've got a gun. There is a hammer down there as well.
I'll use the hammer.
All right.
Use the hammer, the claw side of it, and pull out each of those nails. It will be very long and loud, I'm sure, but it will save bullets and perhaps give a warning that we can have a conversation. That shooting a thing with a shotgun might not make good for conversation.
Right. So you pick up the hammer in your delicate machine fingers and get to work. And as you pull the board away, you start hearing a thumping on the other side of the door.
I stop. Hello?
The thumping stops. Who are you?
I am Unit +1F. I'm here on a scouting mission.
Where's my husband?
I do not see anyone here. There are remains of someone.
Please, sir. Please, it's so cold. Can you let me out?
Yes. I will continue pulling the nails.
All right.
Once I can pull that bar, I am going to take a couple of steps back.
Yeah.
And be ready to use my shotgun in case...
All right.
Yeah. In case something bad is on the other side of the door.
So the bar falls away and the door falls open. Someone stumbles around the corner and into view, and... well, you've seen this before. When the apocalypse happened, when whatever weapons they used set fire to the very heart of reality, some people took it worse than others. And this person, as they look at you, can see they have no eyes, only pits of flame, and they have no substance to their body, just wisps and smoke. And they sort of stagger forward towards the bones and sort of fall to the floor beside them, cradling the skull, which is starting to char between their hands.
I will stand by and watch this moment. Yeah, I think I'm going to move over near the microwave in case this goes very badly.
Yes. As the burning figure cradles the skull and starts rocking backwards and forwards and crying tears of flaming rivulets, the heat is rising. You can see the sofa start to catch on fire, its furnishings.
I am sorry for your loss.
Person looks up at you. Why didn't you do anything? Things like you, machines.
This happened a long, long time ago. I was not part of it.
You're all part of it. You're all dangerous. You're all nothing but killers. Why shouldn't you burn with the rest of us?
Because it is not that time. I'll disconnect the microwave and start heading towards the stairs.
All right. So they're going to try and lunge for you as you carry the microwave towards the stairs. What are you trying to do?
I will try to run away.
All right. That sounds like a defuse action with steel. So do you want to roll plus steel?
I would like to roll plus steel. I have a steel of 1.
Yeah, the classics.
Rolled a 9.
9. Okay, so you've bought some time, but choose one. You need to sacrifice something to get safety. It's only temporary, or the danger's now threatening someone or something else.
It's only temporary.
Okay. Alright, so you leg it out of the basement, and you can hear, as you run past it, the keypad saying, "Sir, my occupants, how are they? Were they alive?" But you're running towards your buggy.
All... I will try to interface. They are all dead, I'm sorry.
Oh dear. And the keypad shuts off. You can see, as you run towards your buggy, your soldiers in it sort of...
No. And then I add in, please close.
The door mournfully slides shut and then starts glowing red.
Oh, okay. I will notify my compatriots. Please get onto the dune buggy. We need to leave.
All right, they throw away their cigarettes and what have you and jump back on. The engine's running as you jump back onto its back of it, I guess. The flatbed, probably, for you.
Yeah.
And put the microwave down. And you can just see and it starts driving over the blasted terrain as a sort of pillar of fire erupts from the suburbs behind you.
That is awesome. Oh man, that is really cool. Yeah. James, that was great. Thanks for running that quick little scene for me of Legacy. That was horrific and amazing.
No worries.
James, thanks again. Again, the Kickstarter is live. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. James, best of luck to you. Really excited for the second edition coming out. Any big stretch goals or anything else that you want to highlight as part of the Kickstarter to entice folks?
One big thing that I'm really excited about is we're getting a bunch of other people to come in and do their own takes on Legacy. Taking the basic system of you've got an organisation and a character from that, and just putting it in whole other situations. So we got a friend of mine, Fed Kaskin. Mm-hmm. He's doing a Game of Thrones / Imperial Russia sort of inspired one, where you're all members of a fantasy kingdom that's just been liberated from a empire, and you've all got to work out what the new status quo is. When, like, some of you are the scholars and some of you are the mages and some of you are the merchants and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And we've got other hacks involved where you're all people on a generation ship who've woken up a bit too early. And one inspired by Spore, the old computer game, where you're each governing a particular lineage of animals. And you evolve them through the ages. So you go through single cell life to animals to sort of tribes and civilizations to exploring the universe. And that's like really taking the giant thing out there.
This is a really cool permutation. It gives people whole new ways to play. That is exciting, James.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on Plus One Forward and sharing this game with me. I appreciate it.
No worries. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community and Richard Rogers. You can find us on gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at GauntletRPG. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and McGay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Arl Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko Metal version and Process. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Arl Hotbed on their website, savagearlhotbed.com.